Wow, wow, wow. We have such an amazing guest today. We have Peter McGraw in the house. Hi, Peter. Good to have you here.
Junie, I'm not sure I'm going to match your energy, but I'm going to try.
You be you.
Okay.
You be you. And they're probably wondering, why is Peter so special? I really am so excited for this topic because it has not been on my podcast yet. We kind of
Hmm.
talk about it. We talk about how to have a wonderful, spectacular second half of life solo. If we are solo, waiting for our partner, wanting our partner, but how to magnetize love and enjoy our life, whether we're solo or not. And your topic is about embracing solo, how to have a wonderful life, and actually maybe even choose to be solo. Do I have that right?
You do indeed. Yes.
Oh my God, I can't wait to dive in. But first, let me share with our listeners and our viewers who the heck you are. So, Peter is a business school professor at the University of Colorado Boulder. I love Boulder. He hosts the podcast Solo, the Single Person's Guide to a Remarkable Life, writes for Single Insights, the Science of Solos. Boy, you can't have a lisp doing your
No, it's true. Yeah.
your bio. It's like, sit. He's got the Single Person's Guide to Remarkable Life, writes for Single Insights, the Science of Solos, and hosts the Solo Salon. And when I tell you this man has been around, oh my God, you've been everywhere. Well, first of all, you co-authored a book called The Humor Code, and
Mhm.
you've written for Slate and Wired and Fortune and HuffPost, been featured and covered on the New York Times. I mean, the list goes on. You have an amazing message, and let's just dive in. You ready?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Well, my first question for you is, are you single and are you solo?
I am. I'm a lifelong bachelor. I'm a laugh long bachelor in some people's opinion, I guess.
Ooh, interesting. Okay.
um, and I am single and solo. And the reason I say that is because I make a distinction between the two. I've been single, at least unmarried, my whole life, and I've only been solo for maybe 15 years, maybe three, depending on how you do the math.
Okay, wait a second. So you're pulling those two apart. So single and then solo. So are
Yes.
you saying that the single is I've not been married and solo is more of a choice for you or a different identity?
An identity, exactly. Yes. And so, we live in a world where there are lots of single people. Right? So in the United States, half of adults are single. That's 127 million. 28% of US adults live alone. That's actually the most common permutation of household. So there are a
Mm.
lot of singles, and they feel various ways about their singleness. Some are quite proud, some are struggling, some are ambivalent. I suspect that some of your listeners fit into each of those categories.
Yeah.
But really, the solo movement, and a main element of my recent book is this idea that I want to transcend relationship status. I want to form an identity, and I want people to embrace an identity, especially if they're single, but even if they're partnered, that allows them to move in and out of relationships without ever feeling less than.
Ah, so huge because that's a big deal.
Mhm.
People a lot of times feel a lot of shame. They go to the holiday parties and people look at them and go, "Oh, you're still single. You're not married yet." There's a stigma still around being
Mhm.
single at a certain age or being divorced and haven't not found that next person. So you're saying some things are changing.
Indeed, yes. I mean, certainly the rates of living alone are the highest they've ever been in human history. Obviously, there was a time where everybody on the planet was single before marriage was invented.
Yeah.
Marriage is only 4,500 years old, although it's a cultural mainstay. It's relatively recent in human history.
Mm.
And I like to remind people that it was invented to solve societal problems, not for personal fulfillment per se, although it has adapted much better to do so. And I don't know if you've had this feeling. I certainly had it for many times in my life. I walked around feeling less than,
Yeah.
incomplete, where's my person? And I don't think that's any way to live, like
Yeah.
why should you be in any way less of a person, less valued, feel that way about yourself? I have a story in the book about Aunt Sally. I'm sure you've met an Aunt Sally before, where a single crosses the country for a holiday dinner. I call her Thelma, and Aunt Sally, they begin their annual dance, and Aunt Sally's like, "So Thelma, it's so lovely to see you. How are things going?"
Huh.
And Thelma's like, "Never better. I just got promoted at work, and I closed on a condo, and I did the trek to Machu Picchu, and I just rescued a puppy named Levi." And and Aunt Sally goes, "Oh, that's nice, dear. But is there anyone special?"
Right. But yeah.
That's right. And I think like Aunt Sally's, I mean, Aunt Sally, maybe riding the relationship escalator and living a good life as a married person, but Thelma's living a pretty good life too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that shouldn't be diminished just because she doesn't have a partner.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And it's the beliefs that we're supposed to be partnered, or it's better to be partnered, or
Hmm.
better to be in a relationship, even if it's just okay, than
Mm,
to be in the dreaded scenario of, oh, but you're going to travel by yourself, or
right.
oh, you're going to be, who's going to take care of you? And it's a yes and on some levels. And I live in more of the and, which is living a full life. And it's not about less than, it's about having an extraordinary life and enjoying it. And if we have
Hmm.
those beliefs that something's wrong with us or broken, if we don't have that partner, that Aunt Sally is going to get under our skin,
Yes.
and we're going to get triggered. But if we know that this is cool and we are full and we're not less than, we're having a magnificent life, and I will raise my hand in that category, it's a whole different journey in this world.
Indeed. Yeah, that's really well said. And I think there a lot of people have experienced this. And I think Aunt Sally is well-meaning. She wants
Exactly.
Thelma to be happy. She just has a different perspective about what leads to happiness. And unfortunately, the kind of get married crowd likes to cite data that says that married people are happier than single people. And so they say, get married and get happy, live this blissful life. And that's supported by love songs and rom-coms and Jane Austen novels. And, unfortunately, that data is misinterpreted. And so,
Yeah.
first of all, the happiness difference between the two groups is very small. It's so small that knowing whether someone is single or married tells you almost nothing about them. It
Mm,
tells you little about how happy they are. And moreover, there's no actual causal evidence for this. So actually, married people who stay married are a little bit happier before they get married. And so this kind of cultural narrative that we have, that's also enforced by friends, family, the media, and
mhm.
through over 1,000 benefits bestowed upon married people by the government, pushes people along to this thing that is often a very good fit. Let's be honest.
Mm,
Marriage is really wonderful for a lot of people, but it's not a fit for everyone, and it's not a fit necessarily for a whole life. And so, to your
yeah.
point, I don't want to judge the goodness of a relationship by its length.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I once fell in love for an afternoon, so I also don't want to judge the value of relationship by its length in general, but for me specifically, I should say.
That's funny. That's funny. And, since you are bringing you up, I am curious.
Mm.
Was there a moment or something in your life that had you do the pivot of I'm single to I'm solo?
Yes, there are actually sort of three moments, and they correspond to the three characteristics of soloness. Um, let's do a little quiz. Let's find out how solo you are, if that's okay, Junie.
Sure, sure.
All right.
I'm willing.
I have a feeling you're going to do well. I really have a strong
And
feeling.
and if I don't do well, then what happens? Oh no. Podcast
You've
is
got a little
canceled
journaling to
immediately.
do. Yeah. You have a little journaling to do, some self-reflection, assuming
Good.
you agree with these things,
Yeah, yeah,
it's up
let's
to you.
see. Yeah, no, I'm game. Go for it. This is
Okay.
fun.
So the first one, and it's the most important one, is that solos are wholehearted. They see themselves as a complete person. not half of a hole waiting to be filled.
Completely. Yes.
Yes, I had a feeling.
Yeah.
And,
And I will just add that it was not always that way. I mean, and I
mhm.
can't even say it was that long ago that that shifted. It has been a journey of unfolding and really claiming my solo-ness. And I am looking for someone to add into my life. It's
Yes,
just not a have to, and I don't feel less than. I love my life. And it was a journey to really be able to embrace that wholehearted loving my life place. It took some stuff.
that's wonderful. Was there a particular moment when it hit you, or has it just been a gradual evolution?
I think it's been a gradual evolution.
Mm,
I mean, every time because I love I find relationships are the most wonderful crucible for growth and learning and
mhm.
expansion and fun, and also hellish and challenging
Right, of
and
course.
provoking and all those wonderful things. And every time I've had a significant relationship, it's taught me so many things. And then there's the reflection time, and that's one of the things I do with the women that work with me is, okay, what happened? What did you
Mm,
learn? And what can we do about unpacking and healing so that you could know that there's nothing broken? And so every single time I've been in a relationship, I moved forward. And this past significant relationship, which was a couple of years ago, it was who knows, but I am just feeling so amazing. It just was that last piece of, oh, wait a second, the value of my life. But it's been
mm.
increments, layers.
That's great. For me, it happened in a flash. I had a moment that changed my life forever. And there's no right way to do this, of
Of
course.
course. Yeah.
And I think we should spend a little time talking about the four different types of singles, because I think I know what type of single you are too, which is very
Woohoo!
fun.
Everyone's going to learn about Junie Moon today. So,
Yes. So my
yeah,
flash happened at
yeah.
age 38, and I was grieving a relationship with a very
Hmm.
wonderful woman who I was deeply in love with. I call her in the book, I call her the fashionista.
Ha!
And we had a really wonderful connection in many ways, but I could not satisfy her. And that is
Yeah.
because I did not want to have children. I
Mm,
had always been reluctant, but around that time in my life, it was starting to really crystallize that I could see myself as a parent and I would have thrown myself into being a father, but it wasn't something I truly desired. And she
mm,
did. And
mm.
so she needed to find a man who could do that for her. And so
Yeah.
we broke up, not because we didn't like each other, not because we didn't love each other, but because we had different goals.
Yeah.
And I was a mess. I mean, I was a mess for like a year over this. And I remember one day I was 38 and I was standing in my bedroom and it just hit me. And it was a very simple, and it might seem even a little bit banal, but I remember thinking, I'm happy when I'm single.
Ah,
That the life I was going back to was not a bad life. It was not a less than life. I was
yeah.
not incomplete. And though while I would have welcomed, as you said, adding this person to my life, it wasn't one who was going to fill a void. And the fact that she wasn't going to be able to do that, was okay because I didn't have a void in a sense. And so that's the first criteria, is that you're wholehearted. The second,
Beautiful. Beautiful.
thank you.
Yeah. What's the second one? Go for it.
All right. Second one is that solos tend to be self-reliant and have a sense of autonomy.
100%.
Yes, I have no doubts for you in this way, and that is that they seek to solve their own problems. They're a good parent to themselves,
Yeah.
and so again, this allows them to bring someone into their life, but again, not to solve their problems, but to add value.
Absolutely. And I'm going to add to that, which
Mhm.
is it can be a little tricky to partner with some people because men need to know where they fit and how to be able to
Mhm.
serve and give. And some of the challenges I see with the women I work with is they are self-sufficient and they really have their shit together
Right.
overall. And then there's, well, where can you let a man in? And it's not about, well, I've got all the answers. Where's the Venn diagram? Where do you meet? And sometimes it's a challenge to actually let someone in. So
I
I know that, and yes, that is me.
That is I think that's a really having that clarity that is like, I don't need a man in my life, but
Yeah,
I would like one.
yeah,
And then that allows conversation to happen. I certainly think, there's a flip side to this. If I can speak
Please.
in a way that I'm concerned about my gender, is too many men let go of their own parenting and let their partners do the parenting. You know, I mean,
It
going
takes
as
two, though. Takes two.
yes, it's
The
true.
women, the women are the women have the habit of being the nurturer and parenting and controlling and making their partners the kid, and
Yes.
the men have also maybe didn't do their work to be able to go, wait a second, hello, adult
Hmm.
here. I can hold my own here. You do not have to parent me.
Yes.
And it's definitely an epidemic I see.
It doesn't help either person because, the woman, you don't want to have sex with a man who you're parenting. It's not sexy at all.
No, 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 no.
And it puts him at great risk because if this wonderful woman decides, see ya, right? So 80% of divorces are initiated by women. Now he's cast adrift, right?
Yeah.
So and he often struggles, like his whole social calendar is controlled by his wife.
Yeah.
His basic needs are being fulfilled and so on, and he can be really unmoored in life. And so I think it's a lose-lose.
Yeah. Agree.
I was 13 when I started to develop a sense of self-reliance and autonomy. I was thrust into it. I was the son of a single mother, 100%. Um, what's that called? Was 100% parenting us and working 3 jobs, struggling to keep the lights on. And I started working to buy my school clothes. And so I figured out pretty quickly how to run a household and how to take care of myself. And I feel lucky about that now,
Yeah.
in a way, because again, I don't need a relationship. But I can desire one in that sense.
I had a similar story. My
Hmm.
dad died when I was 14. And so my mom was thrust into being a single
Yes,
parent with a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old and working multiple jobs. And I also, because I lost my dad, who was like, my God, my everything,
I see.
I took on a belief that I had to hold my own, and I wasn't close with my mom. So I took on the belief that I really had to be self-sufficient and not open up to anyone. And
Mm.
so that affected my relationships for many years with men as well, because I was afraid on some unconscious level to rely on them, because I learned at 14 men don't stick around.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, life, life can be chaotic,
Yeah.
Well, my
Yeah.
condolences. That's very difficult for a
Thank you.
tween to deal with.
It
Yeah,
was. And, there's gold that has been mined from it. I
right,
miss my dad, and yeah. Yes, yes,
right.
and.
I share your love of improv. Um, so the third one
Yeah.
is this is the one that I think is sort of hardest to get to,
Yeah.
and that is that solos tend to have unconventional beliefs about relationships and about life in general. That
Ooh.
That is,
Yeah.
they don't default into the accepted script. They may agree with it, they may choose it, but they don't default into it. And so they're a little cooler than the average person because, they're a little bit more a free thinker in that sense.
Well, gosh, would that be me? Yeah.
Yes, right. Okay.
Yes, a
Check,
little
check,
too
check.
like.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
and for me, I've always been like a little bit impish, and obviously I'm a scientist, so I kind of question things. But honestly, it's been the solo project that pushed me to really start to question our assumptions about relationships. Um, a an idea that I had that there was something wrong with me because I couldn't make a
Yeah.
traditional relationship happen. I had to actually flip that and go, "Oh, there's something wrong with that style of relationship."
Nice.
And that was incredibly liberating there. So, what the nice thing though about going solo is it allows you to move in and out of relationships. Your your relationship status may change, but your identity doesn't. And I think
Yeah.
those relationships are improved. They're more interdependent, right? They're better communication
Yeah,
within them and so on.
absolutely. And I love that distinction. And as a love coach, as somebody that stands for love and supports people in having relationships and have had many different types of relationships.
Hmm.
When I was letting go of the last relationship, there was this, uh, gosh, how do I even say this? I went through this place of not what will people think in general, because I'm good with that.
Yeah.
And
Who cares what people think?
right,
Right. Yeah.
right. Wayne Dyer, what other people think is none of my business. However, there was this moment of how do I pitch this to the women about next level love lasting?
I
And
see.
and for me, I put a stake in the ground for you don't stay in a relationship that's not serving you. Have the right inner game going, make sure you're really clear about what you want. And not all relationships, in my opinion, are even meant to last.
No.
That there are seasons of relationships. However, when I was letting go of that relationship and all my marketing material had them all over the place, and look at Junie Moon, she's got her man. And then I was like, oh, she's letting go of that man. There was a moment I popped into that crazy thinking of, well, if she can't keep a relationship, should
I
I
see.
follow her? And I
Mm.
really had to work it and look at it and then go, wait a second, that's not what I stand for. This is about really owning our life and having a magnificent life. And if we choose to stay with somebody, it better be for the right reasons. And if it's not the right person and we left with love and beauty and friendship, I'm good. It's a tricky place with people when they have these paradigms that have been instilled in us for so
Yes.
long.
Till death do you part, right?
Yep.
That's the standard for a good relationship. And so
Yeah.
I congratulate you on gracefully exiting that relationship and maintaining a sense of
Thank
love
you.
and
Yeah.
connection, and also being true to yourself. And I think it's a great example for your listeners, in terms of the idea that you can change the way you think about relationships, and their goodness. But of
Yeah.
course, you're talking to the guy who once fell in love for an afternoon, so I am biased.
I probably have fallen in love for an afternoon or a moment myself, and it felt so good.
That's fun. I believe love is abundant, and there's research by Barb Fredrickson. She's a University of North Carolina psychology professor that says that yes, there is this deep romantic love, of course, but love is much more pervasive, and that it can happen together with many different types of people. Even you can
Yeah.
have even loving moments with strangers. And so I tell my friends I love them. I tell my male friends I love them. I embrace
Beautiful.
them.
Yeah.
I have love in my heart for them. I'm not going to hold my love and be cheap with it. I'm going to
Yeah.
give it freely. I think it's a renewable resource. And so I think those changes in perspective are important.
And there's so many different types of relationships, as you said, you just
Yes.
listed a whole bunch, and in the partnership realm as well. And I always say that when we're judging, if somebody's judging a kind of relationship, what's inside of you that you've learned that has made that bad or wrong? And I'm actually going to come
Hmm.
out of the closet here. I don't even know if I've ever said this on my
Wow.
podcast yet. Okay, everybody,
I,
are you sitting down? Are you driving?
I'm
Pull
gonna
over
I'm gonna have
now.
a sip of water. Hold on.
Yes, yes. All right, everybody take a breath. When I was married, we were married for close to 20 years. And
Hmm.
I think it was about 9, 10 years in, we started experimenting with an open relationship.
I see.
And
Yeah.
I usually don't mention this for a good reason, because people will then perhaps go, oh, she's going to promote that, or she thinks that's okay, which I do.
Hmm.
And it's not for everybody. And trust me, that was challenging in lots of ways, but that's what we chose. And what I learned in that realm of trying new things, whether it was groups or whether it was one-on-one or polyamory or anything like that, was I could truly love someone
Hmm.
deeply and it not be my husband. And
Yes.
for those of you that might thinking, well, that's why the relationship didn't last. Not true. Not
Uh-huh.
true. Not true. If anything, it extended our relationship, but that wasn't what broke us up. But the piece that I really want to land here is that I truly felt so deeply connected and loving to multiple people, and one in particular. And it didn't affect the love I had for my husband or my
Yes.
family. Love is abundant and it is our birthright. And not every relationship is for everyone. So for those of you that are like, oh my God, well, it may not be for you, but why? And maybe ask yourself, what is it about that might be scary, or, why might you think it's a bad thing? But again, that's not the point. The point is love is abundant and there's so
Mhm.
much to go around.
Wow. So I want to say thank you for your vulnerability and your willingness to share that. I'm actually quite flattered that you chose to share that on a podcast with me.
Thank you.
I think that's wonderful. Of course, no one ever believes that you can only love one child, right? And so,
Right.
and so I think, and biologically that obviously doesn't hold that love is limited to one person.
Yeah.
I think this might be a good time to talk about our four types of singles because I just changed the category you belong to.
Well, I was just going to ask you about those four types. So we are right on target. Go for it.
Okay. So there are four types of singles. One is a pure single, the other three are solos. Okay. So the first type of single, I think, is very much an Aunt Sally type. All right. I call them someday singles. And for your listeners who watched Sex in the City, or maybe still do, Charlotte is a someday single. That is someone who is the hopeless romantic. They feel incomplete. They feel less than. They want to find their person, their soulmate, and live happily ever after in a traditional escalator relationship. Okay.
Yeah. Mhm.
And by the way, nothing wrong with that. It works for a lot of people.
Literally was just going to say that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Exactly.
Yes. The downside, of course, is this feeling of less than until it happens, and it may not happen. There's no guarantees. The world is chaotic,
Right.
as we talked about.
Right.
So the remaining three types are solos, and the solo version of the someday I call a just may single, right? A just may solo. I just may find my person. They want that traditional relationship, but they're not waiting around for it to happen, right? They're going on the trip to Machu Picchu. They're not holding off on a dream vacation because, well, maybe next year there'll be someone good I can go with, or buying that condo or relocating to a new city. They're living their life, and they'd be much less regretful if that person doesn't come along. And so they have a goal, but they're kind of holding it more loosely. That's like Carrie and Miranda are like that. They're on the lookout, but they date for fun too. They don't dump their friends just when Mr. Big comes along. Carrie still maintains her friendships, right? It's
Yep.
it's a much more balanced kind of life.
Hmm.
That's what I thought you were. I thought you were
I'm curious about the
a
other ones
different.
because right now I'm like, that kind of sounds like me, but go ahead.
Kind of. The next group is a surprisingly large group, and I wouldn't be surprised if many of your listeners fit into this. It's a little hyperbolic, but I call them no way singles.
No way.
No way.
Okay.
Yes. That is, they are. So, as I said, half of American adults in the United States are single. Half of them are not interested in dating or a relationship at the moment. That could be for now, or it could be forever. And the main reason that they feel this way is they're doing more important things with their life.
Mm.
They're building a
Yep.
business, right? They're caring for an elderly parent. They relocated to a new city. They're pursuing a graduate degree, so on and so forth. And there's just not as much room. They just don't need it, and so on.
Yeah.
Some of them live their best lives as a single person. Bella DePaulo calls them single at heart that
Mm.
way. And I think this happens a lot for women later in life. They had a marriage, it ended in divorce, it ended in death. They're widowed, and they're not eager to be a nurse or a purse to an older man. They've got their
Correct.
girlfriends, they've got their golden girl situation, and they're in no way.
It's
Their
true.
life is super fulfilling. They have deep, meaningful social connections, which is what really matters.
Hmm.
And so on. And I like to say I'm 20% no way.
Hmm.
It's like I turn the spigot off. The dating apps are closed down. I'm launching a book, right? That's not
Yeah, yeah. You
not
have
a
such great
surprise.
metaphors. I just absolutely love it. And yeah, I would probably say 20% as well. I was like, okay, spigot open, spigot
Yeah,
closed.
right. Yeah, that's right. Oh, I got some time. Oh, it'd be nice. Turn on the spigot, right? Let's pour a big
Yeah.
glass of water. Um, the last group is the smallest group. It's the sexiest group, and it's the most open-minded group. And so I call them new way singles.
Mm.
Let me step back for a moment. And I had alluded to this earlier that I felt like there was something wrong with me because I couldn't maintain a relationship. what happened oftentimes is a girlfriend would want to move in with me. And I don't want to live with someone. You
Yeah.
know, I love my solitude. These were good, healthy, happy relationships, but I wasn't willing to do the full merge our finances, our lives, our identities. I call it the benefication of a relationship.
Hmm.
And I wanted to maintain that autonomy, but according to the rules, that's bad,
Yeah.
you know?
What's
And if
wrong
you,
with
if,
you? Why don't you want this?
that's
Do you
right.
not love me?
Yeah. So you Peter Pan, right? That it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
help my name
A
is
lot of
Peter.
judgment. What
That's
was the
right.
last thing you said?
It doesn't help that my name is Peter,
Oh,
right? So, right.
well, you don't
And,
have to change your name. No.
and so, so what the new ways are doing is they're not changing themselves to fit this mold, they're changing the mold.
Yeah.
So they're relaxing or removing certain rules, right?
Yeah.
So one rule is merging. Well, maybe they live in separate residences, maybe they vacation separately. Um, one of the rules is status, right? So they're not granting their partner veto power over large swaths of their life.
Mhm.
They don't want to diminish a 30-year friendship just because a new man has come along
Yeah.
in this way. Or they're relaxing rules around monogamy, for example,
Yeah.
right? So they're allowing non-monogamous romantic relationships or non-monogamous intimate relationships. You know, they may swing, they may be monogamish, as Dan Savage is, which is like, I have a friend, he's like, I'm 90% monogamous, you know? And so every
Yeah.
so often he and his partner invest, you know, they kind of invite I'll say it again, they invite a guest star, you know, into the relationship for a short,
Yep.
short period of time and so on. And I recognize there are people going, oh my God, I could never do that.
Right.
And I think that's fine. You're not a new way, right?
Right.
You
Yeah.
might be a no way, a just may, or someday. That's fine.
Yeah.
But there are people who do it and do it well. And so, you know, I think you're a little new
I
way-ish.
think I'm a little or maybe a lot new way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I
great.
think out of the box and see what shows up and check in depending on who is in my life, and certainly not going to give away my dear friends or my life for that matter.
Yes. You know,
Yeah.
I think if someone's listening and they go, oh my God, I would never ignore my friends because someone new
Yeah.
came along. I'm like, you are well on your way to being a solo,
Mm.
right?
Good stuff.
Congratulations.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Good stuff. Well, you laid down some pretty amazing things, and I really hope that whoever is listening and watching, sister, there's choices, and it's about you and what works for you. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, if you are single and noticing that you are solo, that you don't hold on to shame or feeling like there's anything wrong with you, and that there are ways to embrace this chapter of life in the most extraordinary way. How do they find you? How do they find more information about you and your work?
I think go to my website, petermcgraw.org. And then I have a whole page of information about the solo movement, the podcast, the new
Love
book,
it.
and so
Love
on.
it.
Yeah.
This was spectacular. Thank you so much for your time. This was such an important message. And now I've learned a little bit more about myself, and now more people know about me. Woohoo! It's all good. It's so good. All right. Well, Soul Sister, I hope you have an amazing week. We have another episode next week. And until we meet again, mwah. One more thing before you go. Have you taken my Discover Your Love Avatar quiz? It's a 2-minute quiz that can help you not only know your strengths, your superpower, because you have one, also identify some of your blind spots, some of the things that might be having you in your fear, having you behaving in ways that aren't in alignment with your highest self, the way you want to be when it comes to dating and relationships. And it'll also help you discover why maybe the stars haven't lined up for you yet. Bottom line is, you take this 2-minute quiz, you get a full report in your email with details on how to move forward in next level love, whether you want a partner or not. So you can go to midlifeloveoutloud.com/love quiz. The link is in the show notes as well. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to the station, I'm going to encourage you to do that too, so you don't miss any episodes. And I hope you got a ton out of today's. See you next week. Mwah.